but we'll talk about the newly released God of War trailer. Is it God of War 5?
Well, it gets tricky.
Like 10.
Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched it just a couple days ago, and it looks super exciting. I loved God of War 4. Matt, I ripped off a bunch of it for our D&D sessions.
Which piqued my interest enough to play it, and I ended up loving it as well.
Fantastic game. One of the best that came out on PS4, I think. I can't wait to play when does it come out? I don't remember.
2022.
December?
Yeah, it just said 2022, I believe.
Okay, 2022.
Yeah, it got I believe, because I think it was supposed to come out last year, or originally intended to come out around now, but I think Santa Monica had said that there was a lot of delays and stuff, which I'm willing to bet was attributed to COVID shutdowns and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Probably, but it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, let's get into the trailer. My mind, at the front of my mind, has been Norse mythology since playing the game, which I only played for the first time in 2020, or no, maybe even the beginning of 2021. But also, I've been reading this book. It's just off screen here, called The Witch's Heart. Hang on, let me grab the cover. Vamp for a minute. Well done, guys. Good vamping. The Witch's Heart. This is just the jacket here, which is a really cool cover. You can check it out. Genevieve Gornichek, who I spoke briefly with a couple days ago and told her I loved her book. We talked about something totally unrelated, but it's a great book. It deals with the character, which I'm going to fuck up the pronunciation, but Angbot, I think is how it's pronounced. Angrboda. And that's a character that was revealed to be a character in the new God of War Ragnarok. So I have a lot of feelings about what that might look like. There's also associations with that character with characters we've already seen in the previous entry. But before we get into all the theories and speculations, I want to know what you guys' initial reaction to some of the information that was given out in the trailer and how we feel. So we'll start with you there, Will.
I'll be honest, I hated it just because of the reveal of a certain character.
I agree.
That honestly, I saw the trailer, it started playing because I was scrolling through Instagram. That's when I sent it to you, but then I was like, shit, I don't want to see it. So I clicked mute, and then I scrolled up. I was like, no, go away. And then later that day, I think it was either Santa Monica's own account or another video game, Informer account, and it showed pictures. It was with movies, it will have the cast, the character's name, and then who was casted for it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So they did that, and it showed that one specific character, and I was like, "Fuck, man! Are you kidding me?"
Yeah, I guess now's a good time to issue.
Then
if
I
you
watched
don't want God of War Ragnarok spoilers, maybe jump forward to the next segment of the show. But we'll get your thoughts too first, Luca.
Honestly, I don't remember what you guys are talking about. What did you hate so much? I was just so excited about the game.
Can I say the character?
Yeah. So yeah,
right.
we issued spoilers.
Spoilers. This is your fault if you listened. Yeah, it's Tyr, because
oh right, okay.
Yeah, they showed him. It looks like Kratos, but skinnier and taller, a lanky Kratos and old.
Yeah. So
and I was like,
okay,
fuck,
so I agree with you that when the reveal happened, I was like, man, I really wish they saved that for the game. That's
right.
Especially because you're essentially chasing the footprints of Tyr throughout the first game.
Yeah, and you just
following his legend.
Then you just the camera cuts him just hanging out in a cave, and I was like,
yeah, it was very anticlimactic, and it sort of did a disservice to the journey from the first game. Whether I know it's in the trailer, and I think they're smart enough that they wouldn't reveal something as groundbreaking as that in the trailer if that's all it was. if that's how it exactly plays out in the game, I'm going to be a little bit disappointed. Or like if that comes like, you know, midway and further in the game, I will be very disappointed. I'm not going to lie. But I feel like they're smart enough that uh, they wouldn't reveal it unless it was a minor.
Yeah, there has to be a
plot
lot
twist.
more to
Yeah.
it. Well, that then like that's what I thought about afterwards, and I think my understanding is that like this upcoming game is supposed to be like the wrap up to like the Norse setting as well.
Oh, you think so? You don't think
Yeah,
it'll be like a trilogy?
that's I read it somewhere, forgot, but I don't know, again I was scrolling through Instagram needlessly, and then yeah, well I mean like Ragnarok is supposed to be like the end of creation, so it'd be
Yeah.
kind of weird if they just like toss that in the second, unless they do like a part one and part two, which would be like weird as hell.
Well, I think the whole thing, right, of okay, so again to a little bit about The Witch's Heart, trying to avoid spoilers for that as well. If anyone wants to read it, it's fantastic. Again, tells the story of, I'm gonna call her Angbot, that's how I've been saying it in my head, or Angraboda, whatever. That character, um, her story and her descent and ascent into being a witch and the mother witch. But she has the gift of foresight, so she can see how Ragnarok will happen. And her way, let's try to avoid spoilers, but sort of like how Odin is represented in God of War, of trying to know everything in order to prevent it. But it's more important the things you don't know, or the variables that are now being put into it that could change how things play out. There's some things that are set in stone, like Jormungandr and Thor fighting and killing each other. Those things are set in stone. At least that's the idea brought forth in this book. But there are things that, if the result hasn't been seen, then the result can't be determined and it can't be set in stone. So I think taking that idea into God of War, I think Kratos is the variable, right? He's not supposed to be here. Him being here is like the biggest variable of all. So I think things are not going to go according to how Ragnarok would normally play out because of his intervention. And I think that'll lead into the next game. That'll likely, but I mean, I don't know. I haven't played the game yet. I don't know where it's going to end up, but
Yeah.
that's just my speculation. But like going through the trailer piece by piece, I guess, there again, the tier reveal, massively disappointing, but I have enough faith in the story group that like that's not going to be, it's not going to be all. Like I remember looking at him and being like, his eyes kind of remind me of Mimir's. What does that imply? Because there was, as far as I remember, there's something to do with Odin
But it's
having
the it's like the gift that like the giants gave.
right.
Like if you're like a giant friend or whatever, like you get like the eye portal things.
Right. Yes. Yeah. 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 That they put Mimir's head, and then yeah, interesting. So that implies Tyr could also get them to Jotunheim or New, I guess. I don't know.
Or travel in time. So it was referenced.
Yes.
Which is,
Which again, okay, so the main thing I wanted to talk about this character, Angbot, is that she begins in the story I'm reading as Gulveg. So you might recognize that name from God of War 4. She's like the witch, you bring her bones back. This like the spirit asks you to do it. And Atreus is very like sympathetic to that cause. And Kratos is sort of like, yeah, don't be a fool. You can't help everyone. And then when they do help that spirit, it turns out Gulveg is this, what are they called? Revenants.
yeah.
And you know, a massive one at that, and tries to destroy them. So my thought was like, oh, it's super interesting because in a lot of Norse mythology and in this book, Loki and Angbot are like husband and wife. And there's also Sigyn and stuff too. But so I thought it was very interesting that that could be, because there's a lot of speculation of time travel elements coming into Ragnarok. I was like, oh, wouldn't that be cool if like that's why Atreus was so drawn to helping that specific person, is because like there was a connection that he hadn't yet made, but that like, you know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Because yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, spoilers if you haven't played God of War 4, I guess, but that's
Yeah.
a huge reveal that Atreus is Loki. Um, yeah. I've been rambling here. So, Luca, what are some things you picked up out of this trailer, and some speculations you have on how they might play out?
I know very little about Norse mythology, so my speculations are essentially non-existent. I expect a third game, just because it feels like they have enough success to justify a trilogy. And this, I have seen like screenshots and stuff as rumors that like there's mention of like the Egyptian pantheon in parts of God of War 4.
Right.
So like, are they gonna start doing this like
How can
pantheon
Kratos
tour?
fuck
Like,
up? Yeah.
which honestly, they did this one so well that I would be down for it. Like, I would probably buy that game. Um, but I have no idea how this will play out. I'm just super excited for another game that plays the same way as God of War 4 like that. I hope they do that no loading screen mechanic again.
Yeah, I can't see them dropping that.
It would be weird. They already did it. I just wish I had a PS5 to play it on. Like,
Oh, it's fun. It is very, very cool. It's so cool because I didn't realize until like after I beat the game that there is literally no loading screen.
yeah,
Like it never occurred to me because it was so seamless that I was just like, oh shit, yeah. Like what? That's crazy.
Yeah.
And then playing through again, I was like, wow, this is impressive how they've like circumvented
yep.
loading screens.
Going through the world tree,
Exactly.
you just keep walking until it's ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, like one, I guess, like thing that I picked up on it once because I was like Uncharted 3 was like really bad for this, but like one of the ways to like circumvent loading screens is have like the character like crawl through like a tight space. And like we see that like several times in God of War, and that's actually like the next area is just like loading. And
Oh,
like
right, when you like ducks underneath,
yeah, like when you first get into when you first get to like the base of the mountain, like after like a couple hours in, like right pretty much when you beat the intro, it's like, and then you start to get into it, like, and then like when he's like crawling through it, there's like all the dead skeletons and stuff like that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's just like the game loading the next area because Uncharted series was horrible for it.
Yeah.
You just like crawl forever.
I think the thing about God of War, opposed to like other or compared to other games that try to do the same thing, is that the ones in God of War felt like deserved in
Mhm.
that they would be giving you story aspects or lore aspects while those things were happening.
Yeah,
That way
like,
it didn't, it feel like, oh, I should be paying attention to whatever this character's saying, opposed to realizing this is like a cut between two different loading zones.
yeah, like I also liked like even when you're just like paddling around like in the lake and like they just like drop like conversations and stuff like that
Yes.
to like fill in backstory, which I thought was pretty cool. So
Yeah.
I wonder if they'll have something similar to that where it's all in one area.
Well, yeah. So I did notice in the trailer, because of it's Fimble Winter, right? Or is it
Yeah.
Thimble?
I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Sure. The Fimble Winter. The lake is frozen,
Yeah.
and so they're using a sled instead. And one of the sleds, or the sled, is pulled by two wolves, or big dogs, I guess. Probably wolves though. One of them's black and one of them's white. I think that was like a allusion to who are the two wolves that chase the sun and the moon.
Scaldy and something else like Scotty. I don't know.
Scotty's giantess,
doesn't know.
huntress.
Uh,
But yeah, I think Scald is right, and I can't remember the other one. But
Hold on.
also,
Quick
Loki
fact.
births a wolf named Fenrir with like green eyes. So I think it might have been allusion to Fenrir as well, or at least a little Easter egg or something. So that'd be interesting to see. We also know, like the cave drawing at the end of God of War, where we see Loki actually like birthing
Skull and
Jormungandr.
Hati.
Skull. Yeah.
Yeah, which is on one of the on like one of like the myth boards that like you open up, like the
Yes. Yeah.
cabinet things. Yeah. Skull
And I
and
think,
Hati.
if I'm not
Close.
mistaken, I think one's black and one's white. No.
I don't know.
At
So
least
that-
that's how it was in one of the puzzles that were in the game.
Yeah. I think it's just depicted because of like one chases sun and moon or something like that. Like there's that connection there.
Yeah. So that's one thing I noticed too. I also noticed an area that didn't seem to be affected by Fimbulwinter. Like it looked like spring there, and then they're also rowing a boat. So I'm not sure which world that is. My
Yeah.
guess is where it can only be Vanaheim or Asgard, because later on in the trailer we actually see people like walking around like in a small town.
Yeah. Or
and
that
be-
the one place where it has motherfucking where the dark elves come from. Because there's one of the elven realms that we can get to.
Svartalheim.
Yeah. Like the nighttime place. And then or it could even just be another spot in Midgard, maybe.
It could be. But as far as I know, like all of Midgard freezes over for Fimbulwinter. I could be wrong though.
Yeah.
And again, it could be one of those areas of this game and this story that diverges from Ragnarok, because of there being X factors involved. So I'm interested to see that. I'm hoping we get to visit all 9 worlds, or at least the other 4 that we didn't get to visit.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the next thing I noticed. When we see the reveal of Angbot, we see like the background she's in is like the red trees and earth type of thing. So I was like, that's either where Freya was in Midgard or that's Vanaheim, which is super interesting. Again, that character did deal with the Vanir. That's what they're called, right?
Yeah.
And taught them her magic of foresight, as well as the Asgardian gods. So that could be involved as well. And again, the love interest of Loki. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. And I think they're like relative the same age, or at least in appearance. So that could be super interesting. Yeah. And then the scene almost made me cry, where he was like, start thinking like a general. And he was like, no. I was like, oh man, he's a father now. That's so nice. And then obviously like the duality between the first, like the intro in God of War of hunting for the deer, and then what appears to be the intro of this game, with Kratos there looking over the knife from Faye, sorry, and then Atreus, we see Atreus come in like with a deer like slung over his shoulder, just like that visual representation of like the growth. Was super cool.
Yeah, you have that I think my favorite was when I saw like the comments under like the God of War reveal trailer, or like just I guess official trailer now, was like when people were like, what the fuck happened to Thor?
Yeah.
Thor really let himself go.
Oh yeah, wait, can we talk about this? Because it fucking pissed me off, man.
He's just like this Northern English football fan.
Like, but it's both sides though, right? Like, okay, so first, the reveal of the Angbot character, like she's like a dark-skinned woman. People are fucking losing their minds, and people from Santa Monica Studios, like the story team there, replied like, yeah, hey, you've never read the Poetic Edda, and if you had, you'd realize that skin color and complexion is actually never referenced. So shut the fuck up and play a different game is basically the response, which is fucking awesome. Like, shout out to them. But also like, so okay, so when Endgame comes out and Thor's packed on a couple pounds, I think a lot of people missed why that was done as a story narrative.
2021 will in the winter.
But it's like, man, he fucking went into a deep dark depression when his brother and literally all his people were murdered in front of him, and they lost, and like he didn't come out of it. Like, and that's just a side effect sometimes of how people deal with depression. Like, sometimes that happens. But the main thing is that at the end of the movie, spoilers for Endgame if you haven't seen it, he's still worthy of wielding both Mjolnir and Stormbreaker. That's that's the important part, is it's like showing like a triumph coming out of depression, or dealing with depression, I should say, of like, that doesn't make you any less worthy of, you know, greatness, or uh you know, love from the people around you. That's the point. So like seeing the response to this Thor, like obviously like I think it might have to do too with like at the end of God of War, obviously Thor comes across as an aggressor because he shows up at the door and he's like, "What the fuck is up?" You know. And
throwing
then
it
in
down,
the
you're gonna pick it
trailer,
up.
yeah, trailer, it's like you seem like a reasonable man, like that whole thing. It was like, oh shit, like Thor's here to kick some ass. And then like the reveal, like you see him from the other side of the cloak, and like
It's a
it's just a
unit.
big lad, man. Like so like people being like, this is not how Thor's supposed to look. It's like, how is he supposed to look then? Like he's a giant dude. Like
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, but like I think he's like if I recall, like that's how he's always been interpreted as like this absolute unit of a guy.
Yeah,
Like
just a
like
thick lad.
like I think of like Gimli when I think of like, I guess, the classic OG Thor. And yeah, no, definitely.
Even going back to like the 70s, 80s, 90s renditions of Thor in Marvel Comics, he's not fucking this Prince Charming the way he is now. He's a fucking thick dude with
Yeah.
like a scraggly beard, and like he looks like a Norse god. Like I can't stand, like I don't mind Chris Hemsworth as Thor. I think he's great in the role. I just hate that that's people's interpretation of what Thor should be. Like this fucking like, you know,
Unrealistic.
essentially Prince Charming knight.
Hey.
Fucking, it's like, no.
He's a terrible person too. Like,
Yeah, he's the worst, man.
Yeah.
We should be like, but he's kind of hot though. Like, fuck that. Like,
he's a monster.
or if you're like, yeah, he is hot, then there's nothing wrong with that either. Like, he's just a dude.
Yeah, because well, I mean, like even in I found like Assassin's Creed Valhalla did a really good job. So they have like a segment like in the past, like the mythology, I guess settings and stuff like that in Assassin's Creed games of late have been like usually been like DLCs, whereas in Valhalla it's just like you go to like this medicine woman's hut in your village that you make, and then you just like get fucked up on like mushrooms or something like that, and then you get like transported to like the mythological era, which is pretty cool. Totally forgot about it, I'm not gonna lie, and I've been playing it this whole time, like all summer. And then until you mentioned it earlier today. So I was like, oh shit, yeah, because I did that like when it
Yeah.
came out. But yeah, I found like the depictions were like pretty good too. Definitely like the cast of characters like of gods that are depicted are like not as like there's only like a handful of them, but because like again, like these segments only take like a few hours to beat, and then that's it. What do you call it, is yeah, like Thor is like basically this like definitely more like the interpretation and portrayal of Thor in AC Valhalla is like a lot more closer to like God of War, maybe like less aggressive and just a little bit more like stupid.
Yeah,
Because
I think Luca was you saying like he's a really bad person. Like
yeah,
the whole like, and they talk about in God of War, but this goes back to the Edda, and that Thrym, right, is the giant who steals Thor's hammer and demands that he be married to Freya in exchange for the hammer back. And so they play along and go to the wedding, and then Thor gets the hammer back and literally murders everyone there. Like,
yeah,
and
which is
then, like,
actually, spoilers, is a plot point in AC Valhalla. That's
oh, really?
it's a little bit different, but there is that like demand from specifically an ice giant to marry Freya. And it's pretty funny because like so like the characters in AC Valhalla, they're all like descendants of these mythological characters. They just don't know it in like the, I guess, more in like the present day setting that they use in AC Valhalla. But like, so it's almost like a dream sequence, but it's kind of like remembering their past lives.
Right.
So like the titular character is is actually like the depiction of Odin, and then Thor is just in there as well. And like, yeah, it's kind of funny because like the Freya's basically like, yo, what the fuck? Like, I don't want to marry a giant. Like, I don't even know this guy. And then like Thor's just like, yeah, fuck it. Like, I just want to get my hammer back. Like, we'll deal with it afterwards. Um, yeah, but like, and like AC Valhalla, like I think even in like the character descriptions, like Thor is basically they tried to keep it like as close as they could to the OG interpretation, where it's just like thick lad, but also like kind of like ugly and stupid, I guess, for lack of better words. Um, which is definitely the exact opposite of what we see in Marvel movies. But like again, in AC Valhalla, he's definitely like super aggressive and just wants to
Yeah.
fight.
I think in Marvel, like especially like in Thor Ragnarok, he's definitely like a himbo, like no questions asked. But I think in the previous Marvel movies, they try to paint him as like this, noble, stoic guy, and it's like not quite, it didn't quite land the way they thought it would.
I
And so
guess like
the himbo representation works a lot better. That movie's great.
yeah. Uh, yeah. I'm definitely hyped. At least like I don't think if I remember correctly, the trailer didn't show Odin either. So
No, so yeah, that could.
it'll be man, yeah, I'm definitely curious to see what the reveals will be. It'll be definitely booking the next like 3 days of my life off when it drops.
I might do the same. Then we can review it right away. That'd be fun.
Yeah. Yo, Santa Monica, link us a copy.
Yeah, straight up. If you're watching. So let's get into our main topic here. Now, Luca, you suggested this topic, so why don't you go ahead and introduce us for it?
Yeah, I thought of this topic while I was listening to the